how do I start this conversation? The data center industry, we're having a moment.
Yeah.
We're being noticed. It's both good.
We're on the news.
I know. NPR, Fox,
every day.
Across the board.
Welcome to another edition of Not Your Father's Data Center. I am your host, Raymond Hawkins. Everyone that listens to my podcast knows Bill, the CEO and founder of Apolo, but also data center prognosticator extraordinaire. So, Bill, thank you for joining us again.
It's always a pleasure, Raymond, and it's a highlight of my day to spend a little bit of time with my friends here at Compass. And there's never a dull moment with you, Raymond, because you're absolutely right. This is not your father's podcast, and certainly not your father's data center podcast, because you throw out some really fun questions. So that said, I'm grateful and slightly nervous to be here.
All right. We like it. We like you a little bit uneasy. We get you a little bit off center because you're always on brand and always on message. So we kind of like that. I tell you, both of my children struggle with the title of the podcast. They go, but Dad, it is my father's data center podcast. And I'm like, stop. It is. All right. So many people in our audience know you and know about you, but we're going to dive in with some things that they don't know. So for the rest of the podcast, you are, if you're willing to accept this, can I just call you Vitaly, your given name?
Yeah. And just, Vitaly, it's actually, if you want to go super formal, it's a Vitaly Yurievich.
Oh, yeah. So help you. Come on. I'm from South Alabama. Stop.
You don't have to go those. Vitaly is the formal name, but amongst friends, it's Vitalik with a K. So if whichever one you prefer.
All right, Vitalik, tell our audience how you got from Vitalik to Bill, because that's not, for those of us, from the deep South, that's a head scratcher. So help us out.
It's interesting. I came to the United States in the early 90s, and almost immediately I became a part of a linguistic immersion program. And it was specifically designed for refugees. We were political asylum refugees fleeing the former Soviet Union, specifically from Ukraine. But when we landed, we got this really brilliant teacher and I promise you'll know why my name changed. She taught us accents, right? So this accent that you're hearing is a natural Midwestern Chicago accent for the purpose that I don't have to translate in my head. Interestingly enough, a lot of my team from Apollo are in Eastern Europe, and we're Russian, Slavic speaking. So if I speak in Russian, for example, for like an hour, and then I transfer over to you, Raymond, like it takes a few minutes for my accent, this one, to kind of settle in, and you might hear me say like, he just say a word strangely. I don't know what it is. But going back to your question, my entire family had really easy names: Anna, Yuri, David, Claire, Eugene, Serge, Lena. It was fairly simple. Right? And then you got me, Vitaly, right? And when we came to America, if I say my name to you, Vitaly, you will say it just fine right back at me, right? But if I write it down, people read it like Vitaly or like Vitaly. It was just really consistent. And my mom eventually, when I was like early teens, she got really, really sick of it. And because she's like, they make you sound like an herbal supplement. So that's enough. And so we go to court. No, before that, we asked an American friend, like, what does Vitaly sound like? And he's like, I don't know. It sounds like William, I guess. And my mom was like, it's good name. We go change. Right. And so we go to court, and lo and behold, I get William by official documents. Right. And so now everybody who's like Slavic speaking or from that part of the world, who know me, that they'll call me Vitaly or like Vitalik. But then everybody else on my American side will call me Bill. And some brave souls, one of them named Raymond Hawkins, will go ahead and use my birth name, Vitaly, which it's always a pleasure. And in a case, Vitaly Klitschko is a person that usually people reference. He's a boxer, and he's the mayor of Kyiv right now.
Yeah.
And my name's spelled just like his.
Big fella too.
He's a big fella.
He's a big guy. And his brother too.
Yeah,
they're both giants.
My brother had a chance to meet him and spend some time with him while he was over in Ukraine, working with the military. He lives in Los Angeles, but he volunteers flies over there for a few months, does some work with drones. I can't get into like too many details, but I'm super, super proud of it. He just recently received, actually, Raymond, he's actually received his second medal for his services. One was a government one, and the other one was specifically for like air defense. And really proud of his work. And he's I was gonna say he's back safe in LA, but that's a dicey question right now or statement. But he's safe where he is in Los Angeles.
So Francis and the team get mad at me if I give dates. So I'm not going to give dates. But when you and I spoke previously, Ukraine and the Russian war was front and center.
Sure.
And we spent a good bit of time talking about it. But will you just take a few minutes with your brother going and your family's history there and you being part of that, post Soviet Union breakup as part of your life story? Will you just take a few minutes and tell us what's going on in Ukraine? And again, we can say publicly thank you to your brother for his service and helping to defend your nation.
I'm thank you for that. I'm gonna make sure I pass it off to him. I'm trying to find an image that my brother had sent me recently. There it is. I found it. I'll put it up to the screen here in just a second. One of the biggest aspects, remarkably, people joke around the whole thing of thoughts and prayers. This is one of those few times where that really does help. One of the paramount fears that my friends and family who are still fighting have is just being forgotten. Honestly, the support is coming. It ebbs and flows. I get it. But just being forgotten. And obviously the fight's not lost. And I don't know if you saw this or not, Raymond. Today was the official numbers released by the Institute of War, as well as the Ukrainian military, as well as the EU. Russia has just officially surpassed 1 million in dead or wounded. Tens of thousands of equipment lost, airplanes, ships now. But that's an extraordinary amount. Back on the front, it's a very challenging situation to have to fight a completely different type of war, right? One where you're trained by European Western style, right? And the other one, which is quite literally still a meat grinder. And the challenge there, and what all of us here in the Western world are experiencing, is that it's really, 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 really difficult to defend land, even if you've got great tools and weapons, against just waves and waves and waves and waves of people, sometimes from North Korea, unfortunately, sometimes even like from China and other places, but mainly from Russia. Just coming in waves. And obviously you've seen some of the latest assaults and bombardments on Kyiv and friendly infrastructure. I want to bring this point home. And Raymond, I have a 4-month-old, Annika, and it was about a month and a half ago. It was 3:00 in the morning, as it is with a newborn. I'm changing her diaper. I'm holding her, and my phone starts going off, and it's my brother. And I check the text messages, and he says, "В наш дом попали," which means they hit our house. They literally hit the 8th floor. Here, I'll see if I can share this with you. I don't know if you can see this or not.
Yeah.
There we go.
Holy cow!
That's the 8th floor. That's my apartment building. We lived on the 4th floor. The apartment's still there. And this is sort of like the day after a little bit. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll for whatever it's worth, I can send this to you. But that's my house, man. We still have neighbors. In fact, the neighbor that lived, I think, across the hall from us sent us this image on a hill across the street. Not a hill, a little field across the street where there's like a park. And I don't know how to express this to the people listening. Like, that's where I played, man. That's where I grew up as a kid. That's where I walked up and down that field with my brother. In a suburb called Bereznyaki. So if you look at the Dnieper River going this, we were on the right side. But if it goes by the flow, but since it's going south, you say you're on the left side. But if you're looking at a map, it's on the right. It's just a little confusing.
Gotcha.
The flow of the river, you're saying you're on the left side. And I can tell you that there were no weapons in that. It was a drone, a Shahed drone that hit, and it killed an 80-year-old woman on the 8th floor. And it's a person that lived there. I didn't know who she was. I only knew the people on the 3rd and the 5th floor. They were our friends, and it killed her, unfortunately, right? And so now there's this house that we still have friends that live there that I'd love to visit, and unfortunately, it's damaged and it was in flames. So it hit home. It really hit home. The overall situation obviously is very challenging. It continues to be challenging. I'm hoping for more support, both from the United States in the sense that, and this is not a political statement whatsoever. It's just making sure that our country continues to be a leader in freedom and democracy, but also obviously Europe needs to step up a little bit. And obviously we're seeing that from folks like Germany who have increased their spending budget, but it's challenging. There's sad stories every single day. One of my dearest friends lost her cousin, and that's it. Just literally almost on a daily basis, we get stories like that. But hope is extraordinary, right? And there's a really great saying: hope is like the sun, right? Unless you believe in it all the time, you won't last the night. And that's from Princess Leia, right? And there's a lot of that right now, where there's continued hope, continued perseverance. And I think I said this last time on our conversation. If Russia stops fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends. So it continues to be an existential struggle. And obviously, the peace terms that are being put forward are basically a the end sentence. 20+% of the country to be given up. Can't join NATO. Can't get any weapons. Nothing like that. So it's just a non-starter, and I don't ultimately know what peace is going to look like, but I'm certainly hoping for it.
Well, so a couple of things, Vitaly. I know we're just a little data center podcast, but talking about the reality that your country is at war is a real thing, right? And because it's not the evening news every night doesn't mean that it's not real, and that human life is not precious, and that it's not a major issue. Countries at war are a horrible thing. I remember my first platoon sergeant in the Marine Corps. He said, any Marine that tells you he's not afraid to go to war will lie to you about other things too. War is awful. It's a terrible thing. Loss of human life, awful. The most precious gift we have, life. So telling the story and having it real, and your hometown and the building you lived in, making it real for me, for the folks that listen to us that want to hear us talk about data centers and maybe mention GPUs and AI. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But the loss of human life is far more important. The sovereignty of your nation, the aggressive acts of the Russian, government got to be stopped. I do want to ask one question about peace. You said, hey, not being part of NATO and losing 20% of your country. You and I don't get to negotiate this peace. Is the NATO part more important? The territory more important? What does, as a Ukrainian, what does the right end to this? Obviously, your nation to continue, but what would be the right way to end this?
I feel strongly that the right way to end this would be to honor many of the security guarantees that were offered to Ukraine during the nuclear deal when in 1991, 1992, when Ukraine was asked to surrender their nuclear weapons, which they did, in return for, security across the board for the entire nation. I strongly feel that there needs to be pathways to NATO and potentially EU membership. But, if anything, it's hard to play, armchair quarterback, especially in this situation. And a big part of me, right, the Ukrainian part of me refuses to give up any land, right? We can't, right? Especially all of this. But then what does an ultimate peace deal look like? You withdraw from mainland Ukraine, but you keep Crimea, right? Or NATO can't be there for like 10, 50 years or something. But it's very difficult for all those folks that have already, shed so much and given so much to accept anything other than a free and sovereign Ukrainian nation that has security guarantees behind it. There's two truths to it. I think there's like the worst case scenario where Russia gets pretty much everything it wants because of a buckling, support system for the country, where they just commit everything and try and push into Ukraine. I think there's a middle ground where President Zelensky might have to accept some territory concessions, but there's guarantees, there's security guarantees, a pathway to membership in the EU, potentially NATO as well. And there's obviously the best case scenario where potentially Europe and even the United States really step up, support, put pressure on Russians, and have a way to sort of push them out, or at least start to push them out to get them to a negotiating point, then where they realize that unless we start using non-conventional weaponry, which is a completely different conversation. And it is a fear, by the way, tactical nukes.
Yeah. Scary proposition.
It is. And here's the reality.
It's an escalation at a whole nother level. Yeah.
It is. And I just kind of want everyone to hear this. If Ukraine had tactical nukes against the Russians, it would be far more effective because they clump them together, they put all their gear together, and then they just stage them. And that multiple strikes have been carried out by American HIMARS very strategically on just many, many pieces of equipment or soldiers just standing there. It wouldn't work on the Ukrainians because of Western training. They don't clump together. They do strike and they leave, right? Small units. So you'd have to have not one, but multiple of these tactical nukes to really sort of create a dent or impact these teams, because they operate in semi-autonomous, desperate kinds of fashions where they're not necessarily clumped together. But I think, again, the best case scenario is obviously Ukraine is capable of pushing them out, getting to the negotiating table from a position of power. And there's a likelihood of that happening because of something I've seen. I've seen the Russian government collapse once before in my lifetime.
That's what brought you here.
Right. And it's not something that might not happen again. These casualties are real. They're conscripting more and more people. Their economy is hurting. And it's one of those situations where I don't know what the straw is going to be on the camel's back. I don't ultimately know. Unfortunately, people say, well, just get rid of Putin. There's religion is not the right word. There's an extraordinary following of autocratic despots that would probably somebody similar will take his place, but maybe someone more intelligent. I mean, that's all really, really speculative. And back to your earlier point, we support people here from the United States as well. There's all these teams, after we send them some dollars or some equipment, they send us their patches, and I've got so many on my desk.
How great!
And one of the coolest ones is actually this one off of a medics patch, and this one was where their van was a blue van. I think I can't remember what color it was. It was hit by, I think, a mortar round or something. Everyone in the van was fine, but then me and my brother, we collected $5,000 to get him a new van. And I'm like, well, what do you need? He's like, I need to be able to rip the seats out, drive to a conflict zone, put people in the back, and drive the heck out. And we bought him a new van, and they sent us these patches, and I have these on my desk, and literally, I've got a couple of handfuls of them, and these are all people that we know that are in these units. I mean, actually, this one is a former surgeon that sent this over. It was my brother's schoolmate that left his practice and began just basically doing field operations. And then this one is really special because he came from an American vet, and he was embedded with a unit in the volunteer corps, and we supplied night vision, I think, materials, some Kevlar gear for them. And he was kind enough to take that off and send it back with my brother. So now I have that on my desk as well. There's extraordinary support, multinational on the ground. And again, that's where I come back with hope that even though it's not necessarily the news cycle, I really do hope at least for that middle ground outcome. But obviously, I pray for the best.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask, and right, I'm the ugly American who my world history extends almost all the way to the border of Georgia. So I don't know much Ukrainian history. Is there a natural, if you had to give up some soil, is there a part of Ukraine that you go, hey, this part used to be, or they're all Russian speaking first instead of Ukrainian? Is there any natural line that makes sense, or is it, hey, we need to stick with the borders that we agreed to from the beginning? Well, when the USSR broke apart,
Kyiv existed hundreds of years before Moscow did, and the lines that were drawn up as it stands were made even previous, potentially, even in the Soviet Union days. Ukraine was defined as it is now. There's a tremendous amount of history there. The land that's currently being occupied, it was never really Russia. It's always been Ukrainian or Ukrainian territory. So their perspective is that these are Russian nationals. They speak Russian, right? So we're gonna take this land. Where the reality is, I don't have anything against the Russian people necessarily, or even the language, right? When I was in Kyiv, we spoke Russian for the most part. Even at home we do. So does that mean Kyiv is a part of Russia as well? Because I speak Russian, right? That it's not. It's by and large a Russian attempt at a greater land grab to potentially disrupt some NATO borders. Donetsk and Luhansk, those regions that were always sort of conflict zones initially, even from like 2014 when Crimea and to today, those are always conflict zones. And again, this is you can argue about this, but I truly do believe, based on evidence and what I've seen, is they would inject some insurrectionists into that area and cause trouble and arm those people, and then all of a sudden you have these little enclaves, pockets within Ukraine that then Russia would try to annex. And obviously in this case they annexed, right, that entire eastern part of Ukraine. Is there look, yes, sure. I mean, you could certainly argue that. You could certainly argue that Crimea potentially belongs to Russia because it was gifted, right, during the Soviet USSR days. But there's Crimean Ukrainians, there's Crimean Tatars, there's all sorts of different kinds of people that live there. You could argue that should be given up to Russia, and if that would appease them, right? That's probably likely what might happen because, in that case, at least Russia has control over the Black Sea to some extent, and those ports and Sevastopol, all of those areas, that's a potential. But the mainland part of Ukraine, I do believe in its entirety, needs to remain sovereign and intact as it is.
Gotcha. And the reason I ask is just back to the first comment. The loss of life's got to stop, right? We got to stop killing people on both sides. He's not going to take Ukraine. Okay, so let's stop. Since that's not, the world stage isn't going to allow that, right? The world community isn't going to allow him to take over Ukraine. So let's quit. Let's get to the negotiating table. And let's come up with a solution that stops it, and let's stop loss of life on both sides.
I couldn't agree with you more, Raymond. I firmly believe that President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation, as well as European and Americans, would love to get to the negotiating table, but peace has to be reasonable, right? Right now, all the peace conversations, at least the demands coming from the Russian side, are impossible. They're a death sentence for Ukraine. It's literally, I keep everything. Hang on a second. And then some. Like, I also want Kharkiv. I also want these other areas that I don't have right now. I want these oblasts, these regions in their entirety, right? So what kind of how? Come on, you're former military, right? You understand that. Like, how do you, as a leader of a country, say that sounds like a good deal to me? Let me give you more than we already have. And that's gonna. And honestly, there is nothing stopping him from, if he potentially ever gets that, to just keep on rolling. And it's not just Ukraine. Poland becomes very concerned about that. And, to an extent, I don't think Poland would allow that kind of a peace deal, because that brings them substantially closer to, to
their border into play. Yeah. Let's, you alluded to it earlier. The and the international community pray that enough pressure is brought to bear on Putin that he thinks clearly about the directions. And let's also, enough caskets come home to Moscow, and he's going to have enough pressure inside his country to stop. But the killing has to stop. Let's get to the table and talk about what makes sense, and let's stop shooting at each other. Because shooting at each other doesn't solve anything.
No, I agree 100%. I don't know what that looks like ultimately, but I agree with you.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit of your family and your country, and something that, like I said, not on the evening news right now, but should be. Let's switch gears. When you and I talked ahead of time, you've been a little bit of traveling. You've been around the world a little. Mm-hmm. I know I saw you. I wasn't there, but saw that you were at Data Cloud. And so where you been, what you doing, and let's get to talking about the data center business a little bit.
Oh my gosh. It's been, how do I start this conversation? The data center industry, we're having a moment.
Yeah.
We're being noticed. It's both good.
We're on the news.
I know. NPR, Fox,
every
TV,
day
across the board.
Yeah.
And where I like it, I like the attention. I'm gregarious. Other people are like shifting in their seats and a little bit uncomfortable. I've been now to multiple events. Data Center World was obviously one of the biggest ones. I was at the DICE national event more recently, the Greener Building Initiative event here in Chicago. I do have notes. I've got some notes from my conversation with Kevin O'Leary, my chats with Peter Hopper a little bit, and kind of
There's a giant in our space,
Phil
Peter.
Lawson Shanks and some of his conversations. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. And I truly believe this. We're no longer in a technology shift. The data center industry is experiencing a renaissance, right? That's how extraordinarily expansive this shift is right now. And to sort of paint the picture on the world of AI, right? And this could start this conversation for us. We live in a world, and some of you folks may have heard me say this already, but we live in a world that's just discovered oil, but hasn't invented the internal combustion engine, right? Way too much raw material, and no one knows what to do with it. And what's extraordinary about that statement, and this is specifically generative AI, right? Imagine we go back to the days when oil was discovered. I'm this landman standing up on stage holding this black viscous material, and I'm telling you that one day this stuff is going to power the biggest machines, take us to the moon, and fly us across skies. You'd laugh at me, right? It's the 1800s. You'd be like, this guy, witchcraft. This guy's snake.
What are you selling? Yeah,
right. But look at where we are now and how oil is quite literally in everything. Now, pardon the crude analogy. See what I did?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Take it all the way. The acceleration from when we discovered oil to today took a while, right? But with the era of ChatGPT, obviously it's not going to take that long. In 23 was when ChatGPT kind of hit the market officially, late 22, early 23, right? And I think that was the time when South Park did an episode on ChatGPT. Now, it's very rare that I will reference and recommend a South Park episode in a professional setting like this. The episode's called Deep Learning. It's really good. I'm
going to watch it.
It's really good. Not vulgar, nothing bad, right? But when ChatGPT takes over, and at the very end, it says written by Trey Stone and ChatGPT. Watch it. It's really interesting. But going back to just kind of answering your question a little bit about where I've been, what I've been seeing, we like I said, we live in this world right now where we're trying to figure out what to do with all this raw material. And the first human instinct that we always have when we discover anything new is, can we light it on fire? And the equivalent of that is ChatGPT. But what we're learning very quickly, and this is, we'll talk about some of the stuff we're doing in Apollo, but we're starting to figure out real use cases, like revenue generating use cases for all this AI that we're seeing right now. And what's fascinating about this, Raymond, and everybody listening, rewind a little bit, right? For the past 30 years, you and I have been conditioned to interact with data in a very certain manner. Raymond goes to his favorite search engine. It could be Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves even. And if he's feeling feisty, maybe Google or Bing. I'm going to pause on there. I did that bit in front of high school students one time, and they're like, what is an Ask Jeeves? Is this guy asking his butler for information?
What is he talking about? Yeah.
So I stopped doing.
Did any of them know what Bing was?
No, well... I stopped doing that in front of young people, but we've been conditioned to interact with Blue Link. September of 1998 was the first time we could ask Google a question. And since then, it's been a Blue Link. And God forbid you end up on page 2 of Google, you're lost. At this point, just question your life. You're in Mordor, throw the ring and run, Frodo. You're good. That evolution right now has been so extraordinary. There's been no other piece of technology that has such a widespread adoption as this type of AI, where if I ask every single person that's watching this, that's listening to this podcast, are you a user of generative AI? Every single person is going to say yes, because if you've gone on Google or Bing recently, that first response is no longer a Blue Link, is it?
That's right.
Now, it's creating havoc for some of the news sites, for some of the people who have to monitor, traffic and whatnot and ads. But for us, we're getting conscious answers. I use that word very, very cautiously, but for the first time ever, wholly original conscious answers where it's not a Blue Link, but a direct response to your question of this information. That's extraordinary. That is so incredibly extraordinary to have this kind of wide adoption from a 5-year-old using ChatGPT to an 80-year-old asking to write them an email or a letter or whatever it is. That type of span or adoption is crazy. Now, mixed in with all of this, power constraint, right? It's crazy. The energy crunch on the grids, the power density explosion, massive shortfalls. Basically, hearing about how Kevin O'Leary is building a 7.5 gigawatt behind the meter facility in Alberta, Canada called Wonder Valley, and recently Tract, I think it was, that came out and said, we've got a 25 gigawatt, site or planned campus that we're going to be doing out in Texas. And I feel like no one's getting out of bed for anything under a gigawatt these days. And at Data Center World, for the first time, we saw one of the biggest mixes of investors, real estate professionals, innovations in technology. We had a booth for doorknobs for data centers. Like legit, just that's it. That's all they sold was doorknobs for critical facilities and data centers. And it's just been wild. I'll pause here. I want to make sure that you get a thought in, Raymond, but I've been in the industry for just north of 20 years, 24 years. I'm a geriatric millennial. I don't know why they need to call me that. They could, there's nicer words.
Doesn't seem a nice way to say it.
It is. I read that on a geriatric millennial. Just call me an older millennial. It's fine. I'm lucky. I didn't get adopted into the data center space. I have a network engineering undergrad. I got an MBA, another master's of information security. But right after my network engineering undergrad, I went right into IT, data centers, virtualization back then, right? And what I've seen happen in the past 24 months has eclipsed my 2 decades of being in this industry in terms of just how extraordinarily fast this industry is expanding and changing.
Your comment about 7.5 gigawatts, 25 gigawatts. I mean, it is staggering to think how quickly the power dynamic has changed, right?
I'm gonna pause you. I'm gonna pause you for just a second. We talk about gigawatts, and yesterday I spoke at the Illinois Economic Development Conference. And ComEd was there, and Exelon. Obviously, they all had conversations around data centers and AI, which I was presenting on. We don't understand what those numbers mean. So, Raymond, I want you to continue your thought, but please asterisk everybody. 1 gigawatt is enough to power a city of 1 million people. 10 gigawatts is enough to power Los Angeles or New York. And 100 gigawatts is approximately 10% of all the lights that are currently on in the entire world. So when we start talking about, the demand just from our industry alone reaching 50 gigawatts by 2030, does that mean we have to build enough power to support 5 Los Angeles or 5 New York cities? Like, folks, even if you don't know what these numbers mean, that is an extraordinary amount of power that we don't necessarily have.
So, Vitaly, we've got to do this, what you just did. So I've seen this done when we talk about federal spending or the federal deficit, right? Mm-hmm. You say that the federal government, spent $1 billion, and people, I don't know what $1 billion is, right? It's hard to comprehend. We know there are billionaires, and we know there are people that are worth lots of, but what's $1 billion? Mm-hmm. Well, 1 billion seconds is over 31 years. So okay, I got it. I can understand 1 billion seconds is almost 32 years, 31 years and 8 months, right? We're going to have to start. You just did it with it's Los Angeles, it's New York City. When we say a gigawatt, and I'm floored because I did kilowatt deals, whole contracts for kilowatts.
Yeah.
And now people are saying, well, I have 5 gigawatts of demand, or I have 7 gigawatts of demand. I'm like, wait a minute, do you really? Do you have any idea how much that is? And I'm not going to name a name here, but when someone says to me, hey, we're going to have racks that have 2 megawatts in them, I'm like, wait a minute. Do you have electrical engineers that work at your shop?
Yeah.
Because how are you going to put 2 megawatts of power in a 42U rack? I mean, it's a little bit like you went back to your crude analogy of, I've told you this is going to give us stratosphere flying machines and abilities to drive across states. Something huge is coming, but we don't have 125 years to assimilate it. It's coming in 3 to 5 years. And it is that kind of shift. It is that magnitude of a shift. We're just going to have to consume it at light speed. Because it is coming. And to your point, I get such a kick because I get asked by a lot of analysts, aren't you worried about the future of the data center business? Yeah. As, it's going to get smaller. And I'm like, no, it's not getting smaller. I'm worried about it getting dramatically bigger because of the number of economically viable business models that are coming from AI. We can't even comprehend them today.
I agree with you 100%. And the growth, there's actually a really great panel over at Dice. It was Lane Anderson, Peter DeBrock from the United States Department of Energy, Peter Gross, one of my board members, and Phil Austin Shanks, and Forrest Sikorsky from Eaton. And it was a statement from Lane. I'm actually going to read this off. He reminded us that data center growth is now measured obviously in gigawatts, requiring deep partnership with utilities, communities, and policymakers. And this is something I want everyone to think about. We're no longer choosing sites. We're designing ecosystems, which has created a market where primary markets in the United States are practically completely out of capacity. Right now, primary markets are at under 3%, with Northern Virginia basically at 0. So, and this came from a real estate panel. Secondary markets are now becoming primary. Tertiary markets are becoming secondary. And as a result, all new markets are opening up across the United States as more fiber, as more connectivity, as more power becomes available in some of those secondary and tertiary locations. Raymond, you nailed it. There's no slowdown. The fact that we had Kevin O'Leary as one of my keynote speakers, I had a really pleasant exchange with him. He was supposed to kick off our conversation at 9 a.m. and he was going to be there like 8:45 and such. He shows up way early, like 8:10, and he sits down behind the stage. And me being gregarious, I sat down with him just to have a little bit of a chat. And he was so kind. Right? We talked about our love for guitars. I have this beautiful, my very first guitar, I still have it, an Epiphone Alley Cat Cherry Burst, a hollow body, dual humbucker pickup, just my favoriteest guitar in the entire world. And he talks about a Gibson that's going to have Mr. Wonderful on the neck. I'm like, of course it is. And he talks about like his wine, and then we talked about business. And he's like, Bill, unless you're investing in real estate and data centers right now, you're completely missing this boat, completely missing the chance to do something special. And then he said something profound. He's like, you know what people misunderstand is that you think that like all these giant organizations are going to be consumers of AI, like the Nikes, like the Boeings, like the Coca-Cola. He's like, no. I'm targeting the small and mid market, because what's going to happen is they're going to use these advanced AI tools to compete against Boeing's, the Nike.
That's exactly right. This is not a revolution for the 100 biggest companies in the world. This is a leveling of the playing field. Yes. You're going to be able, because and this I got to witness, so being in the IT business for nearly 4 decades, right? We made a market in the early days of the 30 biggest companies in the world would buy the latest computers from IBM and EMC. And as soon as there became a new iteration, they would get rid of those machines and get the newest, latest machines, because that difference in compute power and speed mattered to them. It allowed them to stay ahead of their competitors, right? So the big financial institutions all ran the biggest mainframes. And there was a whole market to take that N-1 or N-2 technology and go sell it to companies who couldn't afford the latest iteration. What we're doing is not $50 million capital equipment mainframes, right? What we're doing is building services that any size company can buy by the drink and deploy perfectly for their world, for their customer, for their market, for their story, to be able to compete against it. This is the ability to access this technology is radically different than what I saw 3 decades ago selling mainframes.
But access to this technology, that's where it's becoming very, very challenging. We are asking our infrastructure and the hardware that we're putting in to do things that they weren't designed to do, right? So the AFCOM State of the Data Center report, which, by the way, you can drop us a DM right here. I'll get you the report. I've been writing it for 9 years, and it's a great report because there's an actuarial scientist and a team that gather the statistics, make sure it's clean, and make sure it's market viable before I write anything. So I love having that. And for the past 9 years, we've been asking about rack density. First year we asked it, 6.1 kW per rack, which is great. Good, right? Today, just this past
What year was that?
What year was
9
that?
years
ago. Whatever 9 years ago.
Yeah, okay, 9 years ago. Okay,
then this latest one, the 2025, they came out and they said now it's 16 kW per rack, which, go team. Go data center industry. Yeah. We're moving in the right direction.
We nearly tripled it.
Right. But here's the challenge, right? One single NVIDIA DGX box, right? The 6U, I believe, it's got 8 H100 cards in there. Will take 10.2 kW per rack. So what are you supposed to put 1.5 in there and a whole bunch of blinking panels? That's not going to work out very well.
That's not going to happen.
And so
that's right.
back to your point, the megawatt class rack era is upon us. Not saying next month, but I'm also not saying more than 24
That's
to
right.
36, right?
That's right.
So at the GTC conference, NVIDIA GTC, Jensen Huang stood in front of the NVL 576. And right now, if you're opening up a Google window, whatever you want to do, and searching for it, it looks like a typical rack with 576 GPUs inside of it, consuming 600 kW per rack.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now, if you look at my little inkling of a statistic, right, like 20 kW.
Well,
so
you're at 16, Vitaly. You're good.
Yeah. No. Let's just up it by 500 times, right? That's our 50. Excuse me. Like that's an extraordinary metric. And here's the kicker, right? This is why we had so many people at Data Center World with liquid cooling, new cooling solutions, because physics dictates that we have reached the limit of how much heat can dissipate. How much air can dissipate heat from mechanical equipment. There we go.
Here.
And the challenge is, like, and I don't want anybody to come out there posting on LinkedIn, Bill Kleyman went on Raymond Hawkins, podcast and said that airflow is going. It's not. But to support the future.
Hold on. Let's stick an asterisk right here, because we're both going to get elbowed about it, right? Okay. There's a couple $1 trillion globally invested in air-cooled compute.
Yeah.
Counting the processors all the way through the heat rejection technology. Okay, a couple $1 trillion doesn't get replaced in 24 months.
No.
It's not going away tomorrow.
Yes.
But you can look out and go, you know what? It is going away. It's not going away tomorrow, but the transition has started, right? And I use this analogy with my folks a lot. Hey, 125 years ago, it was really good to be a buggy whip salesman. Everybody needed a buggy whip because everybody had a horse to get around. Everyone. There are buggy whip salesmen still today.
For the Amish?
There are precious few of them, but the Amish have to whip their horses and get their buggies to move.
Holy cow.
So the future came and kind of took them over. So it's a tortured analogy, but hey, it's not going away tomorrow, but air cooled is. We can't reject the heat that's coming. So the change is going to happen. It has to.
And it comes down to economics and density. Yes, you can put 3 HGX or DGXs in a rack, right? Or 4 even. And you can just blow a lot of air and get like 40. Look, when I was at Switch, we did 55 kW. And we're seeing that possible with airflow, but you will hit a limit of efficiency and obviously cost, right? You have to get to a point where it's directed ship. Very soon, it's going to be compatible with immersion, like literally dielectric fluid, mineral oils. But what many facilities have been doing, my biggest partner, Scott Data Center in Omaha, Nebraska, traditional co-location managed services provider, operating about 20 kW. They're like, Bill, we're going to put the GPUs in. We're going to put Apolo on top because we've got customers that want to run on this stuff. But like, how do we get to this next level? They put in rear door heat exchangers from Motivair right now. Schneider Electric, Motivair.
It's a step.
It is a step.
It's a step. You got to do it.
Here in the back of a rack. You're
right.
70 kW.
Yeah, it's a step, and it's going to be a wild ride because the business models for AI are driving right at us, and we're going to have to give them the heat rejection they need. We're going to have to give them the power they need, which means we're going to have to give them the heat rejection we need. Which is back to your point about where first tier markets, second tier markets. I get customers that ask me today and they're like, hey, where are we going? I'm going, hey, we're going wherever the power is. That's where we're going. Wherever the generation is, that's where we're headed. Because we've got to have sufficient power to support these tools. All right, you alluded a little bit to your partner talking about Apolo. You got to tell us a little bit about what Apolo is doing. Give us a little bit about what you mentioned. A bunch of your team is in Eastern Europe. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Thank you for great segue. And I don't want to make this. This is not going to be a pitch. Yesterday, when I spoke at the Illinois Economic Development Conference Summit, there were people in that room that were not technical at all. Right. So in fact, I think I said GPU and AI maybe like once or twice. And what I really wanted to do was bring down practical uses of this technology. So Apolo, and for those that don't know, we are an MLOps and AI platform, right? And what's unique about us is that we are the industry's only true multi-tenant white label platform. So we weren't designed to be sold to enterprises, right? We were designed to be sold to telcos and data centers, managed services providers. We're like Amazon, but we're not. We just have the software layer that we can completely white label and put into private environments for enterprises, but really focusing on like healthcare, financial services, government. Back to that little silly oil analogy, right? So I'm standing on this molehill right now, trying to explain to people that yes, you can build a gas station, right? But then you can also do all these other things. So at the Illinois Economic Forum, I told them what we were doing with a couple of villages. So we were doing some work with the city of Hamilton in Ohio, the village of Hoffman Estates, which we got some Compass love.
I've been around there.
I love it. And then also with the mayor's office with the city of Omaha. So multiple municipalities, just a few of them. And what we've done is that we've rekindled their childhood sense of imagination. And we asked them, what are some of the most challenging things that nothing out there can solve that we could potentially build? Or these aren't even bespoke. We have pre-built agents already that could be customized to do something really, really special. And they thought about it. They're like, okay, we're flying blind in terms of how happy our citizens are. We're like, that's really interesting. Well, what do you mean? They're like, usually it's a problem when we get to it really late and we get frustrated people at town halls. How do we get to that earlier? So we have a sentiment analysis AI, right, which scrapes information for, let's say, the city of Omaha, public information, Reddit, Facebook, X, whatever you want, right? But then also, since government emails have to be stored, we can scrape those as well. So all of a sudden, Mayor Hawkins, that's a great name. Mayor Hawkins gets in there and he pulls up his dashboard every day, and there's a green, there's a yellow, and there's a red. Green is like people are happy. They love social services. Yellow is like you got to fix some of this stuff. And red, there's so much trash in these parks, I can't go to them. Now, here's the kicker. This data is automatically aggregated and put in these dashboards. And what's fascinating is that because we also look at government emails, and this is all very, very secure, we don't look at them. The users of the city of Omaha look at them. They can see something like this. A city administrator is emailing a director saying, hey, we're having some problems with trash in these parks, but nothing's being done. And then people start complaining. So now all of a sudden, the mayor is capable of seeing a very simple dashboard and saying, whoa. We have a problem with people being unhappy.
What's going on with my parks?
And what's going on with my parks? Because people aren't doing their job inside of my city. And now they can approach the situation before there's any fire, before even the embers starts simmering. That's one use case. Another one that we're working on is called that one's called Happy Meter. Another one's called Law Lens, and that one specifically looks at all legislature, all of the aspects of the government, and helps people ask it questions, understand potentially what's happening, be able to interact with new laws and new legislature to respond to questions and so on. Another one we're calling is called the Mayor Link. So the mayor's office receives about 50,000 calls a month, of which 20,000 are, can I go outside today? Should I take my dog for a walk on Main Street? Is my fan too tall, right? And so now we can create not a chat bot. I need to be so clear about that. And true AI agent, which sounds, talks, types just like me, right? But then with a human in the loop persistently, right? When there's a question that, hey, you know what? I don't think I can answer that. Let me get an administrator on the line to answer it for you. All of a sudden, we'll take like 50% of those calls, those really easy low-hanging fruits off of their table. I'm just literally rattling off some of these fun ones. And here's one more, and there's one more after this, I promise. FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. Now, I had no idea that this was such a massive headache for cities across the entire country, but basically, Raymond, anyone with a YouTube channel right now is going to send these FOIA requests to the police department to get these videos of somebody getting arrested because apparently it makes really good content. Now, while it's a very crappy...
Not what FOIA legislation was intended for, but that's where it's ended up. That's right.
Legally, they have to respond to every single one of those, and it takes so much time. But we're like, create an AI agent, which we've done.
Take 80% of those that are ridiculous
or more. And also to the point where you can look at the FOIA and then it goes to an administrator and says, we are 95% sure that this is good, valid, everything's fine. Here's the 5% we're not really sure about. Can you validate it? They'll look, say, okay, it's good. Or no, this 5% is pretty serious. Send it back. And something that would take hours now takes minutes. I'll give you a final one. So in Nebraska, I
love the FOIA one.
It's
That's a good one.
There's others. There's RFPs, requests for zoning and all of this stuff. There's a crazy one that they want us to basically take drones with spatial technology attached to it, where you can upload the map of the city, and the drone will fly, because you can't fly over private property, but it can fly over the streets, right? And it's going to scan. It's going to say that crosswalk is fading. There's a missing stop sign. That sewer needs fixing, and it's going to just fly and send that data back to the services teams. The services teams are going to have a dashboard. Now, it's not going to tell you to go fix it. It's going to tell you which team is the most efficient, which team should go out there, how it should be fixed, etc. When the mayor caught wind of this, they were like, so what you're telling me, Bill, is that I can have a pothole fixed in 40 minutes after it's recognized? We're like, yeah, sure. If you get your team out there fast enough. And he's like, that's going to get me some votes. I'm like, yeah, that's your that's awesome.
AI pothole repair. I can see it now.
It's literally the goal to make citizens' lives better, to use this technology to do something extraordinarily positive. So, okay, in Nebraska, there's a lot of cattle, right? 200,000 heads of cattle, and they had cameras set up, and this is not generative AI, it's traditional machine learning, right?
Right.
And they had cameras set up, and they would monitor the cow faces, and you could literally identify each individual cow based on how they look, right? And they were monitoring for infectious disease.
Mm-hmm.
Walking weird. Is it like snotty, eating? Is it laying down? What's it doing, right? Those models in Amazon would take 2 or 3 weeks to run. So they were really inefficient, right? Because you'd probably lose half the herd by that time. Move that in Omaha, and that time frame went down about 1 to 2 hours. Now, I'm a city slicker. I don't know what that means. So we went to them and like, could you educate us a little bit? Like, Bill, do you know how much a single head of cattle costs? I'm like, I don't. Like $3,000 to $5,000. I'm like,
thousands of dollars.
The ability to identify an infectious disease in one cow and get a vet out there in about an hour.
And I can move that cattle into another pen, and I don't get any other sick cattle.
All of the above. And the visual acuity model is so on point.
So where are you ingesting the cat? I mean, the reason I'm interested, because I own about 1,000 mama cows. So I want to know where are you ingesting the data? So are you using the same cameras that you were analyzing the facial data from?
All that stuff is the same. None of it's changed. What we've done,
just the back end intel is better.
Better hardware, better software, much closer to the fields, but also optimized specifically to allow them to get the best return for that architecture.
So as a cattle rancher, so it's one thing I tell you, I have to go get in the car and drive to the cows, and they're not near my house because my neighbors don't like 1,000 cows nearby. So it's a couple hours drive. If I could do the health and wellness check,
yes,
or have it done back to dashboard. If I had a health and wellness dashboard, so that I didn't have to go count my cows and look at them,
but that's what it is. That's you described the platform. It's nothing insane, but it is a very specific machine learning algorithm that's capable of identifying these infectious diseases. And
that's why you go to the ranch, is you go to put your eyes on all the cows and say that she's got a problem. Cut those 2 out and let's go see what she's got.
Yeah. But
that's why you physically go.
Raymond, you're nailing it. But this gives you so much more data and so much impactful information to do something with.
Actionable information and incredible time saver.
Absolutely.
And not only time saver, but money saver. Instead of having 20 sick cows, I have 1.
Yes, and you can identify it very, very quickly. There's a trust that we're working with, big trust, right? And one of the things that they can't do because they're a financial service organization is use any sort of AI, like none, right? Unless in the Apolo architecture, their cluster is completely segmented and secure. Not a single bit or byte will ever leave their environment. So they're going to have their own private GPT. Like literally, we're going to take Llama.
Wow.
We're going to put it internally, and they're going to have a little window, right? Basically, just their website. They're going to click on AI Assistant, and a window opens up, and it's ChatGPT, but completely private, completely secure, with guardrails. An individual can ask about the weather, or they can ask about specific projects that they're working on, or to find some kind of a file, or whatever the case might be. But we are giving access to this extraordinary technology, which to some industries that are unfortunately, they can't. Now, Apolo specifically, we are the factory floor. We are the factory floor with all the tools upon which people come to build. Again, similar to Amazon, but we're not, because we're all in sort of a private, much more secure kind of an architecture. We have clients that say, Bill, we know what to press. Just give us the platform. We're good. But many, many, many more of them say, we spend 6 hours on these RFPs. They're complicated as heck. We have to ingest PDFs, pictures, diagrams, and it takes my person 7 hours to do this. We take that, we build a small proof of concept and show them how to do that. It can be done in 10 minutes, and then we scale it out. We refuse to build an elephant on a unicycle. Looks great, does nothing for your organization. So be a true advisor. And it's exactly the same thing that you do, that Chris Crosby, that Nancy Novak, with Amy Marks, your extraordinary team at Compass. You want to be good partners to build infrastructure to fit and support your clients to the best of their ability so they can be amazing. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with people. But the educating is important, right? We want to make sure people understand that beyond just ChatGPT, agentic AI, specific little use cases that are extraordinarily valuable, they're achievable right now. And here's the kicker that people might not understand. They're much more economical because of the hardware solutions that we've seen grow and expand in the industry. So something that would have been $1 million 3 years ago.
Back to my mainframe example, you don't have to buy this in a massive bite anymore. That's part of what took the technology revolution so long, relatively long in comparison, right? Is because when we had to pay for the first generation of the mainframe, so it was $40 million. And then the second generation was $20 million. And then the third generation was $5 million. And then we got to where companies could really afford it because we could sell them for $1 million.
Right.
We've skipped most of that in this AI turn of the crank.
Yes, there's been a whole lot of generational skipping. So to your question, Raymond, we've been working on democratizing this technology. We've been working on deploying it to more facilities around the world. And now we're expanding a little bit of our solutions, which we've always had, to help people imagine, to help people understand what's possible. After this economic development conference, I've had numerous emails and notes saying, Bill, is this possible? And usually the answer is, yeah, it's actually not even that hard. You think it is, but it's really not. But listen, there's places where it's not possible. We have to go back and tell them this is a little bit too complicated for AI to do. Let's dial it back a little bit. But it's been extraordinary. It's been so much fun to see people rekindle their childhood sense of wonder and imagine and reimagine, I should say, how they govern. Look, the village of Hoffman Estates has 50 years of their meeting notes digitized. It's literally digital waste. It's just sitting there, right? Doing nothing for them because they have to keep it. Why not use it? Why not use it to ask questions, improve the city, understand historical aspects of what might be happening back then to versus right now?
How did we get here? Yeah, what were the decisions made? So great. Well, man, Vitaly, thank you for letting me use your birth name. I'm grateful for that. I know everybody knows you as Bill, but it was fun to get to do that. Thank you for sharing with us about Ukraine. Awesome to hear what's going on with Apolo. Man, our industry, it's an exciting time to be in our space. It's a lot of fun. I know that we've had you on before and we've talked for an hour without me blinking an eye. So we got to have you on again because there's so much more to talk about. But man, this has been fun. I really, really appreciate it. Good luck to you and your team at Apollo, and excited to see what the next generation, this next discovery of oil does for the world. Because it is, it is radically changing the way we do things in every corner of life. You got me with the cows. I just can't. The notion that it helps me and AI evaluate my herd is unbelievable.
To everyone listening, again, please understand, we really are experiencing a renaissance in this industry, and it's special. And I truly believe that every data center is going to become an AI data center. It's completely dependent on how fast you can get there. And really, you need just two things to be successful in this industry right now: power and bravery.
Yeah. I liked, what was the term Jensen used at his speech? Did he call it the AI factory? Is that what he called it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we're going. I liked that term.
I do too.
Every data center, we're just going to become factories. It's going to be the heartbeat of AI solutions is going to be data centers. I used to tell people we're warehouses for ones and zeros. I like the AI factory better. I like that's where we're headed for sure.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for having me on.
Bill, it's been awesome. Thank you, my friend. Good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Always a pleasure.